Hello, hello, and welcome to Pique My Interest, a podcast dedicated to creativity. My name is Scoop Decker, and I am an artist and your host. PMI is an exploration in meeting some incredible artists, learning about their craft, and exploring what makes them create. Today, we learn from Sue, an abstract artist who interprets nature to allow viewers to escape from the world to find peace within themselves. She drives home to follow your passion and love will come. This episode was recorded on March 13th at the art studio Art at 967 Payne Gallery and Studio in St. Paul, Minnesota, where I was immersed in colors and styles of abstract art. She explains the difference between abstract art and realism, and how she perceives the world. Sue claims that the beauty of abstract art is that it doesn't always have to make sense, but she hopes her audience can get lost in her work and feel something. She's inspired by the unknown. I hope you can look up their work and your interest is piqued. I hope that you are having a grand day, and please enjoy this week's episode I've entitled, Interpreting Nature. Hello, and welcome to Pique My Interest. I'm very excited to be interviewing an abstract artist today. We are currently at the gallery and studio Art at 967 Payne in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm sitting here with Sue Sepulveda.
Awesome, you did that right.
I got it right? Excellent. How are you doing today, Sue?
I'm great.
Wonderful. And can you tell us about yourselves, your name, your craft, and where you're from?
Susan Costello Sepulveda. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota, and I'm an abstract artist.
And what is your specialty within abstract art?
My specialty is basically interpreting nature to allow the viewer to escape from their circumstances and the world and find peace within their soul and tranquility amongst their spirit.
That's beautiful. And how is that different than another abstract artist?
Well, abstract artists differentiate from what they're trying to convey. So personally, I don't know where they're coming from as far as what they're feeling, but most artists, when they're creating, it's dealing with their emotions, their thought processes. For me, it's like taking the textures, the sounds, the tranquility of nature, those experiences of how color resonates or how it harmonizes. When you listen to the birds, you sit by the lake and listen to the water ripple, those type of things. That's what's influencing my art, and that's what I'm trying to convey to take people away.
Yeah.
So
that's great. What's your background? Where are you from? Do you have any education in art? And what was your upbringing that turned you into a creator?
Okay. My mother always encouraged the creative side of me. She was the one who introduced me to little craft type things, color all the page with all different colors and color it with black and then carve out that type of thing. But she really did encourage me quite a bit. I mean, I spent time while we were camping next to the shoreline drawing what I saw, whether it be birds or trees or, just people splashing in the water. I just drew what I saw. And as time went on, I excelled in high school with those type of skills. And in high school, you couldn't tell me what I couldn't do, because I was like, you just couldn't tell me. I was like, I knew it all as far as my abilities, as far as that self-confidence, just that self-confidence was really high at that time. So now I'm losing track of my question here. What's the second part?
Your upbringing that turned you into a creator.
Okay, that's part of it. That's it. So yeah, and then from there, I just, life just took its course. And yes, I did go to school, but it wasn't till later in life after I had children. So I had to go and explore life Don't explore life. Follow your passion, people. Please just follow your passion. Love will come. You don't have to chase love. But yeah, I ended up going back to school for art when I was like 30. I'd say 30. And I went into graphic design. And from graphic design, I ended up illustrating instead of doing page layout and things like that, you know. But I ended up illustrating animals. And if you saw my art, you can see that I do not illustrate. I'm not passionate about drawing animals. I'm more passionate about the surrounding that the animals live in.
Yeah, we're currently sitting in your personal studio, and we're surrounded by your art, and it is a ton of paintings, abstract, mostly acrylic, but you dabble in pastels and other painting. And I just want to know what piqued your interest about abstract art rather than realism. You said you liked to sit outside when you were younger and just paint what you saw. How is that what we're seeing is way different than a portrait artist who's just painting what they see and they're trying to make it real?
I think everyone is really tough on themselves in anything they do. For an artist, to be a realistic artist is a lot of pressure for me. Now, abstract art is not easy, but when you're looking, let's say I'm looking at you and I'm drawing you and I compare my drawing to you. Does it look like you? What am I missing? Isn't the nose crooked? Because I do that. You know, so like...
My nose isn't that crooked.
No, I'm just saying, I tend to like get my proportions wrong or what have you, but not that I can't draw those things. It's just that I feel like there's less pressure with abstract because the nose doesn't have to be perfect. The eye doesn't have to be perfect. I can draw something in your eye that isn't even there, you know? I can just take it and just warp whatever I'm doing into my own little world. And it doesn't have to make sense, right, but to me.
Yeah. And we had an interesting conversation before we started this interview. With abstract art, it can be finished at any time. You could be painting it and it could be done. It could mean so many things to so many people. But for you, you say, that's not finished. How do you know when a painting is done in abstract art?
Okay, so I don't usually have a plan when I'm painting. I start out with a color family, whether it be cool colors or warm colors. And I paint within that family, lines, dashes, circles, and just keep building those layers, and then I break them down. So I allow the painting to talk to me. But as it's talking to me, I'm also keeping in mind as I'm digging deeper into the value or into the painting, my values, are my colors harmonizing, the structure of the painting, is it balanced? Let's say something's manifesting like seen from a fall forest type look. Where's the depth? Like, are there trees trunks to anchor the mass of color? Is there, or are things just floating in the air? Is the eye being directed through the in and out of the painting? Those type of things. And then until that happens, it's not finished to me. It might be in small details like just blades of lines that look like grass, or the stamen of a flower that, okay, that's a flower. Because they can be very vague. It could be just like little circles that represent the flower, but how do you know it's a flower? So those little things kind of dictate what's happening in my paintings.
Yeah, you are very flower-driven painter.
Yeah,
There's a lot of it.
A lot of color.
And if you were very close to the paintings, you might not be able to tell, but definitely stepping back, you can look at these lines and circles, and even though it's abstract, you can definitely get a story from your floral paintings.
Yeah,
You
and
really
I've had
can.
people also tell me that they remind them of experiences under the ocean as they're snorkeling. That they see some of that, and really, when you're looking at that, it kind of does.
Yeah, it does. Wow. Yeah, you've already started talking about your creation process, but if you wouldn't mind going into that a little bit more, I'm also interested in learning with abstract painting. Do you have something in mind in your head before you start, or do you just
Never.
let your paintbrush go?
I never have anything in mind. I shouldn't say never. Like, if I'm doing, like, the portraits you saw, I'm doing the portraits. Obviously, I have something in mind, but even the portraits are abstract. There's collage underneath of it. There's texture paint. I spray paint stencils, and I take it out of the norm. I don't want it to look. I want it to look representative in a way, but I don't want it to look real, per se. But what I've done over the years is, when I got back into art in my 30s, or about 12 years ago, I got really back into my art when I met my husband, and he encouraged me. I started out with pastel. And the reason I took pastels, I really didn't have a lot of space to work, but I was interested in pastel, and I really had a desire to learn it. And I touched base with all these type of mediums when I was in college, but some of these, over my head, I didn't really have an interest. I was basically a control freak. Like, if it was pen and I could control it, or a pencil, I can control where my lines or where my marks were. So with pastel, when you're laying your layers of pastel, there's a luminosity that goes on top of each layer. And with each layer, it's peaking the color that's underneath and or mixing with that color. So that's how those harmonies are built with those. Then I actually did go into abstract painting, but I felt like I was getting in a rut. So I took a step back, and I decided to still work in abstract. I didn't want to go real, but I wanted to really study value with the lights and the darks and everything in between in a more realistic way. And so I did that for a year, and that's how I came about my portraits. And then what I did, kind of like, okay, I got that under control. I started dabbling, and I hated watercolor. I hated it. But I decided to dabble in watercolor, and then from there I was like, okay, I can do this. So each time I change something or try to experience something or explore a different medium or a different path, now what I do is I'm trying to take those experiences and those learnings, and I'm trying to incorporate them into my acrylic abstract painting. So you can see where like this painting here with the amethyst sky is much different than the one that I'm working on that's that abstract forest. The difference, how much different it is transforming, because that's from like beginning to now.
Right. Very different. Completely different stories.
Different stories. There's more depth as far as textures and layers. You can really see it's not so flat.
And it's even funny on the ground you have another one that's even more basic version of it too.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just kind of see the basis of it. Speaking of the basis, what gets your creative juices flowing? What gets you inspired to start?
The unknown. The unknown. Because you never know what you're going to get. It's like a homemade recipe. I'm going to throw a little bit of this into that, and I'm going to throw a little bit of that into that. And then, like with these, what I did is I added collage, I added texture paste, I let it dry, and then I started painting over it to see what I had to work with, like what kind of textures were there. And I decided there wasn't enough texture, so I add more.
Just keep adding.
And and then I was like, ooh, this is yummy. I like this. Yeah. And then you just start kind of going over it, and then you're like, oh, I like how this could be a branch. And that when you start looking at it, it's like, ooh. That's the exciting part, is like you never know what you're going to get. And then it comes together in this magical, wonderful way.
Yeah. Wow. What inspires you? I mean, you seem so passionate about your craft.
Nature, just, for me, a good day is when, like, you can just go for a walk and just get lost in the woods. Well, I don't want to get lost, but kind of get lost in
metaphorically lost.
Yeah, kind of getting lost while you're exploring.
Just let your mind
what's
wander.
new? What do you see? Are the trees budding? Are there birds nesting? Is the wind blowing? How's the grass blowing? Those type of things. What do you smell?
Mm.
As long as it isn't a skunk.
There are bad smells out there. That's true.
Okay, a skunk does not encourage my creativity. But the sweet nectar of flowers
there
do.
It is, yeah.
Or like the crunching of leaves.
Mm-hmm.
So all those type of things kind of play into my art.
Yeah. In one of my sound classes that I took in grad school, we just had to record a bunch of nature, and I put my phone on a rock in the middle of a river just to hear what that sounded like, a thing that I've never been. And what I heard in my synopsis was applause. The sound of the audience going, it was just the rippling of water, and it was just kind of how people can interpret different things.
You remind me of this. Okay, so I am a cancer patient. I am a year in remission.
Congrats.
But I remember me when I first was undergoing chemo, and I'd lay there at night in the bed, and the furnace kicked on, and you know what I heard? Not. I heard angels singing. When the furnace kicked on.
It's your time.
That's what I heard, but you know what? It took me to a different place that I didn't have to like think about what was going on with my body at that time. I was like, I was out of my head thinking how beautiful
But those are the moments that
furnace sound.
Those are the moments that we have that true open-mindedness that you're talking about.
It don't sound like that no more.
That's brilliant. What is success in your craft? Do you consider yourself successful, and what really got you succeeding in abstract painting?
Okay. So success can be vague. Very vague. I think it depends on how open-minded you want to be on your level of success. Some people say success is when they make it rich and famous, well known. Okay. If it happened, it happened. But I never really desired to be famous. So success for me is that when someone views my art, that they are taken away, that they feel lost in the painting, and they are mesmerized and drifting to a different place to allow themselves freedom from this, from all the negative that we experience. So as humans, we experience ourselves, our family, our job, and everything that the media hands us, or what's going on in politics or religion or whatever it is. So we need a place to take our anxieties and just rest and escape and renew ourselves. That's success for me. The other thing would be is, what can I pass on? When lately I've been teaching a couple of classes, and it's exciting to me to share my knowledge to a younger generation. It might be something as little as them understanding how to shade and understand value, or how can they make a paper butterfly fly, or how can they do a Bisquois dinosaur, and just take a dinosaur and make it like a Jean-Baptiste Bisquois, image. So just kind of introducing people to things like that. This summer I decided I want to give back. I plan on just taking my craft and parking outside the Masonic Cancer Society or Cancer Clinic and just painting. And for those cancer patients, when they come or leave, if they want to stand and watch me paint or have questions and engage in conversation, or me share my story about my experience going through cancer, that's how I want to give back. And to me, that's all success for me.
That's great. I love that.
So,
wow. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Speaking of teaching students a little bit of art knowledge, do you recommend going to school or taking classes to build on abstract painting for a younger learning painter?
I think, not necessarily mandatory, but what I think is, it's nice to have those the basics like understanding design, understanding color harmony, understanding different types of artwork, whether it be like cubism or impressionistic work or hip hop or what may have you, because
graphic design.
Well, graphic design has really helped me, because you do deal with all those principles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had to deal with like balance, and graphic design is just, it really is a lot broader than what people think. Believe me, it's just like, I learned like textile design, I learned illustration, I had to know how to do pastel, I learned watercolor, I learned acrylic, I learned page layout, I learned computer work. I learned so much in a 2-year course. It was just a 2-year course I took. And then I worked as a graphic designer for a while. And you learn so much about product design and how. So yeah, I think those things help, because it's like it expands the mind, and you have a better understanding how broad art is and how much it influences our world. People don't realize how much art influences our world. It's all around us. It's not just the dancer. It's not just the theater. It's not just the painter. It's the graphic designer. If you look at the labels on your products, if you look at the patterns in your furniture or your shirt, your blouse, those type of things. If you're looking at textures or basket weaving or pottery, it's all art. And if we didn't have it, could you imagine how boring our world would be? There's a quote that was said, and I love this. It could have been all made black and white, and we would have never known. We would have never known if everything was black and white. We wouldn't have known the color. We wouldn't have understood the sound, or how the sound dances with the color. or how the notes dance with the color, with the sound.
Yeah. Wow. For somebody who's learning how to incorporate these techniques in their painting, just a little more advice. How long does it take you to finish a piece?
It depends. Depends if I get stuck. And what I mean by stuck, there might be something that's not quite right with the balance, or there's a problem with the color harmony, or there's something going on that's just not making sense to me. I might set it aside and just look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's important that you set it aside and you look at it. And you're basically, what you're doing is you're problem solving. You're trying to figure out how you're going to make it communicate well with each other and not fight against each other. So that's that. But you just need to keep practicing, and you can't feed into self-doubt. And no one's the boss of you. I've got that Jody King always tells, she's an awesome artist, but she says, no one's the boss of you, which is true. No one is the boss of you. So you create what you want to create. It's finished when you decide it's finished. And sometimes you just need to step away and observe and make adjustments that work well with your piece. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's really clarifying what you want.
Well, it's funny. It actually leads into my next question, which is about a creative block. How do you overcome getting stuck? Yeah. But I have read in a past interview that you've done about stepping away. Just completely just setting it aside.
Away.
Get away. Don't think about it for a moment. Get some fresh eyes.
Well, I had one that I did on the outside here that it took me 3 months to finish. 3 months. And I've had others that took me 6 months. And then I've had some that takes me a day. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on the energy that's happening.
And dealing with the frustration.
Well, that's the whole idea, to walking away, because then you're leaving it there, and you're like clearing your mind and your thoughts. Because if you keep looking at something, it's no different than dwelling on a personal problem. You're only manifesting it, and
mm-hmm.
And it's just eating at your spirit. So yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring up this quote that you had in an interview. You said, "Don't let your circumstances dictate your path or destroy your dreams." And I just think that hits home with a creative block. Don't put barriers in your own mind. You need to learn.
Well, there's a lot behind that. When I was diagnosed with cancer, my husband kept asking me, "What do you want to do with the studio? What do you want to do with the studio?" And I wasn't well enough to come to the studio. It was took me 5 months before I even got to come in and actually create. And that was it was a very depressing time, to be honest. It was very depressing. It was very challenging. But my studio was like my safe place. And it was a dream of mine. And that was one circumstance. The other circumstance is that I had a daughter who had asthma. I had to step away from my graphic career because I was a graphic artist, yes, but I was an art director at the time. And I had to make a decision of what was going to be best for my family. And so I stepped away, and it wasn't till 20, 30 years later that I actually got back into art. So you stay passionate to who you are, and never, ever, ever give up on your dreams. Never. It's never too late. Never.
I can't thank you. No, really, thank you. Something I just want you to build on a little bit more. We talked a little bit before this interview about the confidence. Being able to just put the brush on the canvas and being okay with what it looks like and not being too hard on yourself. Can you give a little bit more advice on the confidence in how it looks, confidence in your work?
Well, number one, with acrylic paint is forgiving. You don't like it, you just paint right back over it. So I mean that's forgiving, but there's other mediums that are not so forgiving. But it's all about just going through the process and learning. Each time you paint, each time you make a mistake, each win you make, each celebration, it may not be the best that you would say it would be, but in somebody else's eye, they're like, oh my God, I can't do that. So even though you feel defeated, put your work out there and share it, because it's going to encourage someone else. It's going to encourage someone else, and everyone's going to fall. It's no different than learning to crawl and learning to walk. You fall, you pick yourself up, you brush yourself off, start over again. And you just keep repeating until you start building that confidence. Do I always have confidence? Do I still get stuck? Yes. But I'm challenging myself. I always want to learn something new, because whatever I learn new, I can incorporate into what's happening now and manifest something totally different. It's about evolving and growing and educating yourself and creating new wrinkles in your brain. You know? I'd rather have them in my brain than on my face.
I think we all would. Like that. Moving forward a little bit further, after you've completed your piece, you might have had a show. How do you handle criticism, especially in the world of interpretive abstract art? I'm sure you've gotten a lot of people saying, I don't get it, or what is this? How do you handle criticism?
You know, I really don't get I don't really get a lot of, I don't understand it.
Oh, wow.
I really don't. But you just got to remember that let it roll off your back. You have to let things roll off your back. You might be like stewing about it and thinking about it and, well, maybe I should do this or maybe I should do... You know what? It's about your creative path. You're expressing you. You're not expressing them. They're not the ones who went through the experience. You're sharing the experience with them. If they can relate to your experience, good. If they cannot, that's fine too.
That's great. I love that. I really do. Do you have any funny, interesting stories about your craft just off the top of your head?
I shouldn't tell you that one, because I told you that one.
Oh, no worries.
Well, he won't hear it. He won't hear it, so we'll be good. Okay, so my husband is the one who encouraged me to get back into art. And I finally told him that I wanted an art studio. And at the time, he was making himself a man's cave, you know, with his tools on the bottom and these cabinets and these little stepping stones going, not stepping stones, but a ladder leading up to his little nest away from the indoor room, you know, with his TV and sound system and whatever. And I said, can't I just have a little space for a studio? And he told me, no, this is my space. If you really wanted a studio, you'll figure out how you're going to get a studio, or you would make yourself one. You can clean out the back of the shed. You can do this, you can do that. So I said, okay, I'm going to clean out the back of the shed. I told him one week, and he said, whoa. Not yet. It's too soon. I want to be there to help you. So time keeps going on, and I got very impatient with him, and at this point I was pretty hot, so I started looking for a studio. And I went and found myself a little bit, and my studio is small. It's not a big studio. It's a little studio, but it's mine. And at the same time I was painting. I was painting this series of paintings all together. And so I got my studio in secret. I didn't tell my husband about my studio for 3 months. I create a painting that says, it's the deepest, darkest secret. And I wouldn't let my husband in my studio for over a year because I didn't want his negative energy in my space. I was just upset with him, but he can be encouraging now. I mean, he's better. He sees that this makes me happy and that I come alive when I'm around other artists and in my craft. So.
Oh, and it's a beautiful painting. It's really great.
Yeah, I'm thinking that I was angry.
Well, I'm glad he supports you now. What's next for the world of your craft? What's next for abstract painting? Are we going to see any new techniques or methods or artists that are really going to pave the way?
Well, I'm really trying to dive into larger pieces, much larger.
Mm-hmm.
Like this 24 by 36 is an attempt to go larger. I have done a few 24 by 24s, but I want to go larger yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we just take those at one step at a time because, like, where am I going to store them in this little room? But, yeah, I'm doing those things. I am also helping with a neighborhood visionary group that involves artists in the neighborhood and building the community. We are looking to build the community here at 967. I regularly, every Sunday, I do shout outs on my Instagram for other artists in the Minnesota area. I believe in supporting and networking and building camaraderie amongst creatives. After all, we are like-minded people. We feed off each other's energy. It helps with I feel it helps with the creative process. It's like usually people who have similar energy, the energy builds. It doesn't like deflate. It builds.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's kind of what I'm looking to do.
Well, I also learned before this that you're not only here as an artist in the studio, you're also the curator here.
Yeah, but I'd like to do a little more curating. I did the last curation of Unearth, which we brought together a weaver who does weaving with willow. She grows her own willow and she weaves with her own willow. Her name is Martha Bird. Then we have a ceramic gentleman by the name of Randy. I don't know Randy's last name though. And then there's Lily, who is a aspiring, I call her a textilist, but she's more like a designer in a way. And what she does is she takes material and reuses it to try to prevent it from going back into the earth. And then there was Marvin, who does oil paintings, abstract. And so we just merged those four artists together to create this gallery exhibit that looks more like a museum exhibit. But it's about educating people on like what is oil paint and how it affects us. What can willow do for our land and as far as emulsion and stuff, like preventing emulsion, or preventing things going back into the earth and things like that. So
Sue got these artists and found a common theme between them and made it educational for the public to learn a little bit about how these art forms can come together and educate us a little bit about our own earth. I think that's a craft in its own self. Right.
And then it's important that we kind of know, how are we affecting the earth? What are we doing? And how can we prevent or extend our life cycle? Because really, when you think of it, it does affect our life cycle. Because if we lose Mother Earth, where are we going? The moon? That's not promised.
Wonderful. And where can we see your work or work like it?
Okay, so right now at 967 Payne, you can see us. We'll be doing a new expedition, and then we'll be opening the 22nd of March for that exhibit. April 26th, 27th, 28th, our gallery will be open for the art crawl. And then I have a piece that's going to be at AZ Gallery, which is downtown St. Paul. I do try to post those things on my website.
What's your website?
It is CostelloSepulveda.CARRD .co.
And what's your Instagram?
Costello Sepulveda.
Wonderful. Great.
So, yeah, that's my Instagram.
All right. And I've started incorporating one last question in my interviews. If there was a craft that you could excel at besides your own, what would you want to do?
Dance.
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 Dance is for everyone. That was the title of one of my episodes in the first season.
Because I've sung in a choir. I can sing. I want to dance or even play an instrument. I'm impatient, though, so I think dance. Because I think even if I was impatient, I could get away with it. Yeah, exactly. Who cares? It's self-expression.
I can't thank you enough for joining me and piquing my interest. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
No. Just be you, do you, and expect nothing else but being you.
Wonderful. And thank you to all my peakers out there. Please let me know if you know of any special or unique artists or art forms you think I should explore. This episode was recorded in St. Paul, Minnesota. Remember, creativity comes from the heart. Push yourself. Be kind to each other. I'm Scoob Decker, and thank you for helping me pique my interest.